let's talk about talking. Well, more specifically, about how you are going to balance dialogue and your Foley effects in your film clip. You need to strike a balance, but you need to remember dialogue on top unless it's necessary. So, I recommend subgrouping and putting things into groups in your DAW. Lay out the subgroups left to right. First, start with the dialogue and ADR. Then put your sound effects, any ambience, then your Foley, then your music. In dialogue, the traditional layout from left to right is going to be main characters, then minor characters. In the Foley and sound effects, the traditional layout will be the principal footsteps for the first two, the background footsteps for the next two, 1 to 2 channels of props, and then your cloth. Label everything in your DAW, and if you're using a mixer, get some mixer tape and label it as well. You probably have a bunch of existing Foley sounds that are more or less set in the mix already. Group them, and then having that group track, you can raise or lower the entire mix as necessary. You're going to do the exact same with the dialogue and ADR tracks after you've recorded them. Record them first, then group them. And then again, you'll have the group volume fader you can use to raise and lower in the mix as necessary. Subgroups let you make global changes to the group parameters like the volume, or if you need to, you can still adjust individual tracks by holding Control or Command on most DAWs, although it might be a different modifier depending on your DAW. This is an essential process for mixing music, and it's equally important for mixing for film and games, which is why we're going to spend a lot of time in class on how to do this. This will allow you to reduce the group volume for Foley and footsteps to put it just below the level of the dialogue so that the dialogue sits on top. And then, if you have to automate individual parts of the dialogue or the Foley to support the film at times, you can still do that. But, you can still create a basic mix of the dialogue tracks, group them, and then add additional automation after you've set a basic level for everything. Remember that the dialogue and the ADR carries the narrative of the film. It must be at the forefront of the mix. If you can't hear the characters, you're probably missing out on the plot. Foley should be at a realistic level in relation to the dialogue and ADR level, unless it's a sound that has to be boosted above because it would normally be louder or because it's a dramatic effect. So, for example, your running footsteps should not be louder than the character screaming on screen in your horror movie clip. For ambience and environmental tracks, keep in mind that they will be quieter than most of the Foley. But as always, some exceptions will apply when it suits the narrative. If you need to have a small segment of tree leaf rustling that's louder than the other Foley effects, then you can do that, as long as it suits the narrative. But then, when the characters start talking, you need to bring that down so that the characters can be heard.